Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We're so excited to have Bonnie and Thomas Liotta joining us again. This dynamic duo who are helping parents and children all over the world with their unique coaching skills and, of course, their own unique experiences. But they're both amazing. We finally got to meet last week, and I'm excited to be back with them today for more. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again, Bonnie and Thomas. How are you?
Oh, we're doing amazing. And I'm going to say I'm a little nervous. I don't know why. Here's the thing. I get really passionate about our message sometimes, and I might come across as, oh, she sounds angry. But really, it's because I'm so passionate and I love humanity so much. And I see the potential of our kids like on a big scale that it sometimes comes across a little harsh. So if you hear that from me, just know it's coming from love.
I know that. Thank you guys so much. And I know, guys, the two of you have a unique situation, and really, you've been helping so many with parenting. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself? And then we'll kind of take a back step into the history of parenting to start. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about me is that I worked with thousands of kids through the ancient teachings of personal development, better known as martial arts.
Yep.
So we always had what was called the end in mind. We'll cover that a little bit more, and I think it's the next episode. But being able to see what was missing, it's really all about preparing a black belt mindset, which means you can launch out of the nest with all your life skills intact and be able to go share your gifts with the world. And when you can see the prime directive, everything else just really falls into place. So if you don't have that, maybe that could be a clue why everybody's running around like Chicken Little. The sky is falling.
Yeah, and I just want to say that in 1994, Jill, I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And I'm sure most people can relate with me on this when I say I was a very disempowered teenager. I grew up with a brother who got straight A's. I was always compared to my brother. I was yelled at a lot. I was the oldest child, and it was always, you should know better, but I didn't really actually know better. So by the time I was a teenager, I really believed that there was no space for me in this world. I thought I would be a loser forever. I did a whole bunch of stupid things as a teenager, drinking, teenage pregnancy, sleeping under the stairs, really homeless at the age of 16, just for a little while. So I had given up on myself, and at 21, I went and sold Kirby vacuum cleaners, and they introduced me to personal development, and the manager said, read this book, and it sat on my shelf for over a year, Think and Grow Rich. And halfway through the book, I'm like, if I knew how to set goals, if I knew that anybody in the world could set a goal, create a plan, work the plan to achieve their goal, I never would have done all those stupid things. I went over to my dad's and I'm like, I don't know how, Dad. I know I'm a high school dropout. I know I gave my baby up for adoption. I'm going to cry. I know all these things, but I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to empower all the kids in the world before the age of 12. And 18 years later into personal development, becoming top 10 in the world in business in 2 different companies. I was successful everywhere except for with my parents, except for my dream of empowering my own kids. They were ADHD, ODD, anxious, depressed. And I'm like, God doesn't make sick kids. So I don't get this. And the psychologists were prescribing medication and therapy and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, my kids' brains can't be broken. There's got to be something off the mark. And right around the time I was just ready to give up and give in 2000, so 18 years later in 2011, God brought me to Tom, and he was just the answer to my prayers. He had this special way of working with his kids that would have lived in his head and died with him if I hadn't had my personal development training, so I could see you could parent with goals. Like, let me share this. I Googled for today. When you Google how do you discipline a toddler, and isn't this where we start as a parent, starting to think about discipline, because now you have a toddler that's getting into everything and telling you no and having temper tantrums. So I Googled, how do you discipline a toddler? And it says this: you discipline a toddler by correcting their inappropriate behavior in the moment and praising positive behavior when you see it. Wow. I know. Okay, so this is what we're all used to, and I laugh because I know what I know, which is
know that doesn't really work all the time.
It never works. It never will work because toddlers just are doing something. They're just like this ball of energy with zero life skills, touching and doing and learning how to live and navigate this world that we live in. And how will you ever see something positive to praise with a toddler who's never been taught any life skills? Like, you're never going to see positive things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're always going to see inappropriate things because a toddler is just a tiny human being. So it doesn't make sense. It really sets us all up for failure. And this is the parenting advice that we start off with toddlers and we bring it all the way through the world. And let me also say this. What do you call a person controlled by another person? Because isn't authoritative parenting based on a gentle form of control? Can't you just control your child's behavior? So I Googled, what do you call a person controlled by another? And what's the answer, Tom?
Puppets.
Wow. Never thought of it that
Bing.
way. Yeah.
Who likes those little light bulbs that just show up magically above the head? Like, oh my gosh.
Let me go on to say, is it possible to control someone's mind? Yes, mind control is possible, often with structured indoctrination and or a significant abuse.
Television program.
Or abuse. They call it abuse. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's why we want to talk about the history of parenting today. I know every parent listening is probably like, just tell me what to do. Like, just give me the answers. But unless we can change how we see our children, you're never going to hear what we have to say when it comes to solutions.
Got it.
And if we did tell you what to do, and see, people come to us to learn to speak kid, just like you would learn to speak Spanish. If I told you what to do all the time, that's called a translator, which means I got to go pee. Donde la baño? Where's the bathroom? That in the moment, you're great. But if I were to disappear from you, now they come back, you say thank you, and and all of a sudden you're lost again.
Yes.
It's not about telling me what to do. It's about learning to be fluent rather than just know a few good lines.
Yes.
And fluent on their own, becoming more independent over time.
That means you can speak.
You don't need us anymore.
Yes. And by the way, it's Creating Champions for Life. Just tell us how we can reach both of you, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the history of parenting.
Yeah. So if you go to learntospeakkid.com and put in your name and email, it's going to take you to a 12-minute video that is going to be life-changing in itself. And then it's going to give you instructions to find our Creating Champions for Life app and get you some free resources there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. All right. So let's begin. What is the history of parenting? Do you want to kind of walk us through that?
Yes, because when I met Thomas and I started to do my due diligence, is there any other parenting that leads with goals? And I couldn't find anything, but I started to dive deep. And if you go back to caveman days, like if I want something from another family, what did they do? They just beat each other over the head with clubs. And then if we fast forward, into the 1700s, kids at the age of 6 were off working full time. And if you looked at the soldier, the king, or whoever was leading you wrong, they would take you out back and they would beat you. And so all the way into the early 1900s, which, by the way, in 1900, 1920, 13-year-olds were adults. They were building houses. They were getting married. They were having babies at 13, 14, and 15. So just wrap your mind around that for a minute. And the only articles that were being published in the 1920s was, should I give my baby a little bit of rum to help them sleep? What temperature should the bath be? And an article came out right around that time that said, you should not kiss and coddle or respond to your child or baby's every whim, because if you do, you'll raise what they called a wussy adult. So they knew the principles of success back then. And then in 1946, Dr. Spock came around and wrote a book called Baby and Child Care. Now, I want to pre-frame with, I believe everybody does the best they can with what they know. I think the intentions in the beginning were correct. He knew that beating children physically was very harmful for their mental well-being. However, he wrote a 900-page book based on what he thought might work. They call it theory. So he introduced naughty time, or what we know as timeout. He introduced positive discipline. We call it today attachment parenting, balanced parenting, conscious parenting, gentle parenting, call it whatever you want. It's all based on Dr. Spock's book, and it's all based on controlling child behavior by setting boundaries and offering consequences. Does that sound familiar, Jill?
Yes, it does. That's what I was told and learned about as a kid as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you ever wonder why your kids just don't listen to you?
I do. And it's amazing how they listen to other people. What am I doing wrong as a parent? Again, I have a 6 and 8-year-old, 2 boys, and especially the older one wants nothing to do with me, doesn't listen to me. He's acting out, he's explosive, and it's just, I feel like it's just me. Well, I'm the
Oh
single
my God.
parent, but so it's hard. It's every night. I don't want to do the homework. I don't want to take the bath. I don't, and I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong? I tried. You said something again last week's show. Now I forgot it, but you'll remind me again, Thomas, what to say about my little genius. I did it last week.
Well, you're really hitting it. Why do they listen to others but not me? It's because you want them to do what you want them to do, where the uncle could say the exact same thing as dad, but somehow the uncle got the message to the kid and goes, man, your brother, your uncle, my uncle's smart. And dad's like, I've been saying the same thing. But it's the way that you see, it's the way you think. It's coming from, I see something I don't like. What's wrong with you? Why can't you be more like, or why don't you just do what you're told? Where the other one goes, I got no skin in the game. I'm not really attached. It's that razor's edge where to be like, well, what are you working on? Well, I'm trying to get this. And they give them the universal formula that everybody knows to make it happen. So the child has a chance to activate the little genius spirit. So it comes from the inside out. It's not your idea. It is, and you guessed it, my idea. And that's the difference between the responsible cry, I can do it all by myself, or the blaming cry, nobody's letting me and no one hears me. And that's the razor's edge.
Show her the reframe.
Kind of make a gun.
Okay.
And we're on a podcast.
Right?
Yes.
So point your finger and put your thumb up.
Okay.
Now put thumb
You're
to
making a
finger
box.
and finish the box. Look through the box. And what do you see? Say it with me. I see something I don't like.
I see something I don't like.
And just between me and you, positive or negative?
Me and you.
Positive or negative?
Oh, positive or negative.
Right? What is the answer?
What is the answer?
No. You got to answer it.
Oh, I thought you were going to repeat you. Yes.
I did. It's a question. Getting you to think.
I want positive.
Right, but you see something you don't like. Positive or negative?
Negative, I don't like.
Okay, now here's the reframe. We have free will, which gives us the God gift to do what?
Change or reverse.
And switch it around. You're looking through the exact same box through
But now you
an
look at it differently. I just had a cortisone
educational
shot
lens.
today, so my hand is hurting me right now.
Aww.
But okay,
So you're
okay.
looking through a new box.
New
This is called an
box.
educational lens
Got
versus
it.
that behavior lens that you don't like. I see a little genius who's just embracing their own uniqueness. And it's the power of thought. Positive versus negative is the difference between hurting, holding, or helping them become who they choose to be. And that's the big difference. It's your approach. That's why a universal principle of cause and effect, if I can change my cause, you're guaranteed a new, and you guessed it again, effect. It starts with us, unless you still want to buy into the idea that God makes sick kids or there's something wrong with them. And that right there leaves you in the behavior versus the educational lens.
But hey, you're not doing anything wrong, Jill. You're doing exactly what you've been taught to do through books, through society, through education, through teachers, through therapists. Like, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. And what we find the moms who are trying their hardest, the moms who read the books, the moms who are studious and they love the education are actually experiencing worse results than parents who are completely uninvolved. because we're literally being led off a cliff by wolves in sheep's clothing.
True.
Completely unintentional. If you're a gentle parenting expert listening to this, we know it's not your intention. It's what you've been taught, and you're only as good as what you've been taught. You don't know what you don't know. But the whole universe is governed by principles. And I know I shared this on last week's show, by principles. So what we teach at Creating Champions for Life are principles that work. That's why it works with every single child. If you're being taught something works with this child, but it might not work with that child, it's because it's based on theory. It's based on guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And like that makes our kids pawns to society. And how can we look at a 6 or 7-year-old and label them and drug them and blame them when we've never taken the time to show them what to do to get what's important to them, not what to do to make you happy, but what to do to get what's important to them. And that's really key here. And next week, we're going to get right into some content. Today, I want to finish the story. I want you to think about Helen Keller. I remember watching a movie with Helen Keller when I was just a little girl, maybe 13. And here's this little toddler who was born perfectly healthy, got an illness. The illness took her sight, her words, and her ears. She couldn't see, talk, or hear. And she had this little doll, and the doll's little eye had popped off, and she's trying to communicate with the adults. And they're going, go away. Like, God, this kid needs to be institutionalized. And the kid starts freaking out, and she walks up to the table and she grabs the cloth and she pulls all the dinner dishes and dinner off the table. And the dad goes, that's it. She's going to an institution. Anne Sullivan was attracted into this little girl's life. And Anne Sullivan, I believe, was also blind. So she knew how to teach her how to communicate with vibrations. Because she had one person who believed in her, she was able to learn how to not only learn how to communicate, but she was the author of a dozen books. Mm-hmm. She's one of the most inspirational beings of our time. She met the president. We're talking about her right here. And so this is what I'm saying. When we believe what we're being told, oh, your child doesn't listen, he's got ODD. Oh, your child doesn't listen, they have this disorder, that disorder. It's like, okay, even if that was true, does the child not deserve to be taught life skills to develop the faculties of their mind? So if you look at it like this, we went from beating our children physically to beating them up mentally, and then blaming them for having meltdowns and outbursts and being sad and depressed. And I'm telling you what, ODD projected to be a $26.3 billion industry. ADHD on the rise every single year. There's more and more children with ADHD, anxiety, depression, and teenage suicide, the number one cause of death for teenagers on a global scale. Now get this. The grandfather of the positive discipline that we're all using to raise our kids today, his grandson, Peter, committed suicide at the age of 22 by jumping off of the roof of the building that his father worked at on Christmas Day. And tell me that wasn't a direct message to his father. Tell me that today teenage suicide does not correlate with the grandfather of positive discipline's grandson committing suicide. It's horrific. It's horrific. But nobody knows.
So when we know the history, then we can have a chance to go, I'm just going to just blindly follow it again or repeat it. Or if I had a chance, remember that time we used to talk like, do you remember if you knew what you knew now and could go back to high school, wouldn't it be completely different?
Said that the other day to my friend. Yes.
That's what history, it's kind of like high story. It's like, okay, if I could change, and that's the magic of gives hope to the moms around the world. And yes, there's a few dads, but the mother's the neck if the dad's the head. It is, if I could know what I know now and I had a chance to make a change. That's why we bring up the history, because if you don't, you will repeat it. And here is the mothers that are looking to rise up and be that first in their family lineage to destroy, disrupt, and dismantle this hypnotic curse that we didn't ask for, but we found ourselves in, so we can change and be that hypnotic cure.
Beautiful.
Creating Champions for Life All you got to do is learn an ancient language that's been around since the beginning of time. I didn't invent it, just like Einstein didn't invent law of relativity. It's been here since the beginning of time. It's called learn to speak kid.
Yeah.
Better known as a recovering adult.
Yes.
Yeah, we can save our kids. We can I call Mother Infantry to rise up because the next generation is counting on us. Nobody else is going to love our kids enough to do it. So we need to do it. We need to take matters into our own hands. We need to know the history, and we need the correct knowledge to raise champions. Every child has a champion.
And I've got 3 questions for our thinkers out there. If not this program, then what? If not you, then who has their child's best interests at heart? And most importantly, if not now, then when would be a good time to get started on the right path?
And in your notes, you also mentioned about kids, for example, why are they acting out, right? These tantrums, these meltdowns. So we should be teaching parents, you say, about principles of success, not just medicate. Do you want to share a little bit about this? If a child hits, where should they go hit? Inside, outside? I read that before.
Yes. So remember the reframe. You see something we don't like, they hit. Well, what if they were just saying, hey, I would like to learn how to play tag? It's not a matter of I'm mimicking because they saw somebody hit. They did not learn to hit, they mimic. The question now comes with the reframe of an educational is, I'm going to hit. Can you show me when and where can I hit? Because see, hitting is a really good thing and you can make millions of dollars hitting. It's called a game that we always see. It's called baseball. Hit the ball. You see, that's the razor's edge difference, is showing them where to versus not to. Because at the end of the day, when you ask for directions, hey, how do I find a store? Well, it's not that way. Okay, well, thanks a lot. I probably wouldn't listen to you either. And what if they act out? Horton hears a who. Maybe that little champ inside is saying, I am here, I am here, I am here. And they're not being heard, yet.
Because we're so busy trying to get them to
be a puppet and be controlled.
Behave. Yeah. It's a fine line, razor's edge difference between trying to control them and guiding them. But it makes all the difference in the world when you can see your child's just looking to be heard.
Yep. Just like inbounds and out of bounds. It's a razor's edge.
Yeah. I remember when my daughter was like 3 and a friend had reached over to undo her seatbelt in the car. And she was like, no, like Mom, do it. And he just ignored her and undid the seatbelt. And she screamed like somebody was murdering her because she's 3. So why don't we just completely ignore what she wants? Because I'm the adult. We've got to do it my way. You see what I'm saying? So we've really got to step into our role and start to lead our children with life skills training, with goals. Like, hey, teach them what they can work towards when they do good things versus threatening them. That's oppositional. And here's your consequence when you do that again.
Can I just ask one quick question? How would you get a kid to do homework the right way and enjoy homework? Would you balance that? Because that's always a hard one, I think, with parents, right?
Well, right. Well, first off, it sounds already just the way you're talking is you want them to do the homework.
Yeah.
So that's already something that you see them, they're not doing it, negative. And they're obviously not doing it the way you want it to, negative. Tell me how add those together ever makes positive. However, if you started with the end in mind, what's the purpose of doing homework? Did they have a vision of what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be an astronaut, a fireman. I want to be a florist. I'm going to be a ballerina. Aha, that's called a goal. That's important to who? Not me, but them. Now, let me show you the universal principle, better known as a recipe. Here's the ingredients. Here's the sequence. It'll look just like the picture in the Betty Crocker cookbook. So if you learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic, there's the plan that if you did this, you could be the best ballerina fireman that you wanted to be. Oh boy, can I? Then they do that because it's coming from inside out versus outside in.
And let me share a story for the moms who are like, okay, that's great. My daughter wants to be a ballerina. My son, well, here's first of all, we got to shut off the welfare system. That, I all my kids had cell phones. They all had a computer or TV on every floor. I had a 7-bedroom house. So they were living like princes and not listening to anything that I said. So when I started learning Creating Champions for Life, I had a 13-year-old who was refusing to go to school. And for the last 6 months of the year before, I tried grandpa, I tried tickling, I tried yelling, I tried threatening, I tried water, taking his blankets. He'd just go whatever and grab a blanket, go back to bed. So now I knew Tom and I knew Creating Champions for Life. So I phoned Tom up and I'm like, Jacob will not get up and go to school. What do I do? And he goes, does he have a cell phone? I go, yeah. He goes, who's pays for the cell phone? I'm like, okay. I pretty much knew in that moment what to do. So I just said, you know what? I have my life. I'm an entrepreneur. I paid for the 7-bedroom house and it's his life. He's 13, but do I owe him a cell phone?
No.
Right. So I go downstairs and I go, Jacob, I've been thinking about this and I'm going to let you choose whether you go to school or not, because really it's your life and whatever. I go, but I tell you what, the first day that you choose to sleep in and not go to school, you're saying, hey, Mom, I'd like you to just take my cell phone for a day. The second day that you don't go to school, you're saying, hey, I want you to phone Telus and put a hold on my phone for 2 weeks. And the third day that you choose to stay home and lounge around, you're saying, Mom, I really don't want you to pay for my cell phone ever again. Now, I'm good with whatever you choose. I love you either way. Have a great day. And guess who went to school?
Your son.
Every day till the end of grade 12. And he's now 24. He left home at 22 with $20,000 in the bank. He is a manager. He's been a supervisor at Costco in the tire section since 21. He's 24 now and he manages the whole section. And when the head manager heads out of town or when other managers in different departments head out of town, he takes over. So that one plan, he had a goal for the cell phone. I gave him a parent-approved plan on how to keep the cell phone, and he chose to go to school to keep the cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Wow. These are the stories that we as parents need to hear. These are all things that clearly Bonnie and Thomas Liotta, that's who we're talking to today, by the way. LearnToSpeakKid.com. And we have just a minute left of the show. So how do you all want to end off today?
Always focus on validating whatever your child does, whatever your child says, validate it and see it through what life skill does my child need to learn.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And how can we contact you both?
Oh, always LearnToSpeakKid.com for free life-changing parenting resources. It's a great place to start. You can contact us from there. Everything you'll ever want from us is through there, LearnToSpeakKid.com.
All right. Thank you both so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank
you're
you
awesome.
guys. No, you're
Thank
awesome.
You.
And excited to work with you guys again next week. Really eye-opening. LearnToSpeakKid.com. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.